Vice President Mike Pence squared off against Kamala Harris. Now, it was as predicted. It was a quote-unquote polite debate. But I have to admit, and most of you know that I'm not a big Mike Pence fan. And I said in my Wednesday monologue, I wasn't quite sure what Pence would do, but I felt he would come out and he would defend the president. I wasn't quite sure how forcefully he would defend the president, and I have to admit I was pleasantly surprised. He did an excellent job. He was not going to be denied his time, and I do not believe that in any shape or form Kamala Harris did herself any favors with not only the way she would sigh and roll her eyes and, you know, her just disdain for Mike Pence, but when she would look at him and say, I'm talking now. I'm talking now. I tell you right now, she reminded, first of all, every man in America, she reminded him of the X, he is glad as the X. I'm just going to put it out there. Sorry, that's a reality check right there. I also believe that she turned off a lot of the so-called, if there's any really out there, undecided voters. Because again, it's not just coming in and making the case. A vice presidential debate's a little bit different than the presidential debate. You are doing two things. One, yeah, you are, whether it's defending the policies of the current president or defending the policies of the guy who wants to be president, you're also on a job interview with the American people. They're looking at you and they're sizing you up thinking, if anything happens to your boss, do I want you to be the president? And Kamala Harris did herself absolutely no favors. Now, admittedly, she handled the first part of the debate, the first 20 or so minutes, very well when the issue was the coronavirus or the Trump administration's handling of COVID-19. Now, I thought the vice president did well in some of his responses back to her, you know, when she basically said that if President Trump recommends a vaccine, she won't take it. But if the scientists do, well, then she'll take it. Well, newsflash there, honey bun. First of all, I'm one of those people, I'm not going to take the vaccine. But the vice president saying to you as a quote-unquote national political leader, you are undermining what the administration is trying to do in restoring the health and safety of the American people by basically discrediting the president and his vaccine. And again, as I have been saying, it isn't like Donald Trump is in a lab coat working in the kitchen of the White House like he's in an apothecary, you know, mixing things together and creating the vaccine himself. This is going to be a vaccine that the scientists sign off on and say, Mr. President, this is the one. So, you know, nice try, Kamala. I also thought the vice president did a great job when he says, you know, I listened to what it is that you and Joe Biden say you would do differently when it comes to the handling of the pandemic, that you would get, you know, the right equipment in the hands of the people, making sure that we have ventilators and making sure the supply chains are up and running, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He said, it's what we've already done. It's the Trump plan. Really what I see doing, and this was a master line from Mike Pence, you are plagiarizing what we've done. But then again, Joe Biden is really good at plagiarism. Bam. That was a great shot right there. Now, the punch that Kamala landed tonight, and it's obvious, and this is something else you need to understand about vice presidential debates, the moderators of the next two presidential debates, you know they're watching tonight. The president got hit in the first debate over you were too slow in getting around to dealing with COVID. The Biden campaign, I can tell you, in the state of Ohio is running ads where they've got doctors talking about the lives they could have saved if Trump had been faster. This, they feel, in the Biden camp and in the media, this is a winning argument for them. And this was where Kamala scored some points tonight and talking about the slow response. Now, there is one chink in the president's armor, and I hope somebody gets this to the president, because I'm going to help you here, Mr. President. They know that instinctively, if you get attacked in an area, that you are immediately going to defend that area. So when they tell you your response time was too slow, you didn't know what you were doing, etc., 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 you immediately, your instinct tells you, we had the best response time of any presidential administration. Look how fast with warp speed. We've got vaccines. We built ventilators. And all of that is true. But Mr. President, right now, that's not playing with the American people. They have hit you on a slow response. They want to lay 210,000 deaths at your doorstep. Now, unless you're willing to completely come out and discredit the CDC and say that all those numbers are just bogus and hogwash, and it's definitely less than 100,000 people that actually died of coronavirus. But again, you can't win that narrative now. Here is what I would do if I were you. And the Biden campaign and the mainstream media will not see this coming, and they won't know what hit them when you throw this punch. Look in the camera, look at the American people and say, you know what? I'm sorry. Pause for effect. I listened to Dr. Fauci and the experts in the beginning. That's why we were slow. Boom! They're waiting for you to defend your China ban. But what you need to do is you need to put this right back on Dr. Fauci, because again, he is the media-created savior. He is the one that can do no wrong, even though most of the American people didn't know who he was before February. And because he has been propped up, and I know you don't really talk to him anymore, he's not part of the coronavirus task force anymore, he doesn't get consulted. That was a gift to us from Mike Pence giving us him, which is why I've had my questions about the vice president. But now you've got Dr. Atlas in charge of the COVID team, and things are just moving along exponentially, and we're gaining ground. That said, Fauci wants to be out there. He loves to give the interviews. Throw him under the bus. Blame it on Fauci. I would. We've got the videotape. We've got plenty of evidence. Even the far left hate Fauci because they see him as a politician and a liar, which he most certainly is. As in late February, he was on 60 Minutes saying we don't need to wear masks. And the 60 Minutes reporter pressed him, are you sure? Because people are saying we need this protection. No. Now, he came out later and his response was, well, we didn't know if there would be enough masks for the frontline responders, and we couldn't have the American people buying them all, so we had to tell you that, but now we need every American in a mask. So, Mr. President, you can say, hey, Dr. Fauci, he told us we didn't need to do that. That wasn't necessary. He even told you, the American people, that. And even if he was trying to save the supply line for the doctors, he at least should have given us a warning. Then make them at home. Make something out of a scarf. Make your own mask, but cover up. But he didn't do that. He told us that wasn't needed. In fact, even into March, Nancy Pelosi and Democrats in Chinatown, in San Francisco, and Chinatown in New York City, they were walking around. They were telling you, live your life. Go out to eat. Go to the theater, come to Chinatown, eat, drink, be merry. I listened to all of them, and you know what? I should have gone with my instinct. Mr. President, put the slow response they want to attack you with back on them. Well, then the debate turned to the economy. And of course, that was where at that point Mike Pence truly took over, and then he really owned the debate, forcing constantly Kamala Harris to answer him. And, you know, he was correct in pointing out that Biden will raise taxes by $2 trillion. You know, it's funny to watch Kamala, and Biden did it in the first debate. You know, on the one hand, they want to talk about the fact that it was actually the Obama administration that created the economic comeback. Really? Because You're all upset that one of the first things that Trump did when he got in office was he repealed every single Obama executive order. And the economy took off anyway. That would make it the Trump economy, not the Obama economy. So there was no wave that Donald Trump rode in on and took credit for. Even Wall Street doesn't buy that. But on the one hand, you can't talk about we need jobs and we need an economic plan and this president has failed us and we've lost millions of jobs and we're in a recession. And then flip it and say he needs to listen to the experts. He needs to listen to science. Well, it was the science experts that told him close the economy. Close it. Shut it down. And he did. And he killed the economy based on the experts. And again, the president needs to say, we'll never do that again. And it has not only killed jobs, but what it's done. Have you thought about how it disrupted the food chain for the world by closing down our economy? How many millions of people are dying around the world indirectly from COVID because of our shutdown? Now, that doesn't get talked about. So, on the one hand, these sick, vile individuals want to blame Trump for a recession that happened because they demanded the economy be shut down. And again, Rush Limbaugh, I'm still waiting for your apology. I know it's coming. You attack me for being one of the lone voices in conservative media saying, yes, the Democrats actually could create a recession. You laughed. You said the Trump economy was too strong. Well, guess what? They created it by using the pandemic as the fear mechanism to kill it. And now they want to blame Trump for a crumbling economy and that he was too slow to shut things down and respond to coronavirus. Do you actually process what these people are saying during these debates? Hey, I got a question for Kamala. Thinks she's a hottie Harris. What effect have the riots had on the economy? How many businesses have gone out of business because they got burned to the ground? Or major corporations have just decided, I'm not doing business in those communities anymore. I'm not going to reinvest there. I'm not going to build a new chain store there, only to have it looted and burned. How many people who lived in those neighborhoods, shop there, now have nowhere to shop? That puts a hit on the economy. How many of the people who live there worked in those businesses that now no longer exist? See, that needs to be something that's talked about as part of the economy. By the way, we were down 30 million jobs, and the president has already added 11 million back. Yes, the airline industries and Disney, touristy type places, they have taken a hit. Why? Because of the constant fear mongering. You gotta wear a mask, gotta wear a mask. People are basically saying it's still not safe. It is safe. Get out and live your life. But that said, as this fear continues to grip America, movie theaters really aren't back yet, and sports are being played in this quasi-weird way with, cardboard cutout fans in the stands and piped-in sound effects. So people aren't going to go spend money at Disney or get on planes. So those types of industries are taking a hit. That is a direct result of the Democratic hysteria and fear-mongering being done with this virus. Now, Kamala tried to say that the Trump-China trade war, you lost. You lost. And again, Pence had a great response. Now, he knows that the average American would get lost if you start explaining how we've actually won the China trade war and how beneficial it is. So he gave a great soundbite when he said, we lost the trade war. Well, at least we declared war while Joe Biden was too busy being China's cheerleader for 47 years. Boom! That was a great response. And when she talks about now because of the trade war, goods and services have gone up, products that people buy have gone up, yes. See, the Democrats, they don't mind your jobs going overseas because the way they pacified you, the way they got you to shut up and accept it was you could have $5 VCRs, $5 DVD players because it was all made by slave labor in places like China. But now that all of this American manufacturing is coming back and thousands of factories that were shuttered across the Rust Belt that are now open, and the Rust Belt people, Rust Belt America knows that, so they're not swallowing the hogwash that Kamala's dishing out. They've got their jobs back. Manufacturing is back. Yes, because here in America, we pay people a living wage so that they can work and save and maybe put a kid or two through college and enjoy the middle class life. That means your DVD player is going to cost a little bit more than $5. The cost of living has gone up, but so has the standard of living. And under the Trump tax plan, the average American family saved $2,000 in taxes and saw a $4,000 increase in their salaries, thus a net gain of $6,000 per family. But hey, Joe Biden's going to take that all away, and Kamala said, yes, he is. Then her comment about other countries now don't respect us economically around the world. Of course not. And I don't care, because for decades under Obama and under Bush, both of them, and under Clinton, other countries have been allowed to rip us off on trade deals. They were making a small fortune off of us while patting us on the head, treating us like their little Saturday night, forgive me for saying it this way, whore. Me love you long time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now that Trump has leveled the field, well, of course they're a little upset. They're not making the money off of us like they were. And NATO's having to actually pay for their own defense, or NATO nations are actually having to pay for their own defense now. Shazam, Batman. So when they're asked, do you want Trump to stay in the White House, or do you think America ought to have a new leader? Oh, new leader, so we could start ripping them off again. Now, the two best portions of the debate tonight that Pence was absolutely brilliant in was when he made the case and he laid it out emphatically that one of the things that would kill the economy under a Biden administration would be that he would end fracking, that Joe Biden would end fracking.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland.
Well, Kamala took the bait, and I think she had a George Bush moment here.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
Ah, yes, the famous read my lips. No new taxes. And what did George Bush do 2 years into his administration? At the recommendation of Ted Kennedy, he raised taxes, and then he lost the next election to Bill Clinton. And what was it that caused George Bush to lose to that scumbum from Arkansas? He reneged. No new taxes. Well, Kamala had a no new taxes moment tonight.
So, first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact.
Are you sure that's what he said? Because you said you guarantee. You guarantee. Read my lips. I guarantee.
So, first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact.
We are going to get rid of fossil fuels.
Well, like what about, say, stopping fracking and stopping new pipe?
Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated.
I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends. Number one.
3 consecutive American presidents have enjoyed stints of explosive economic growth due to a boom in oil and natural gas production. As president, would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. No more, no new fracking.
So, first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah.
Read my lips.
So, first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah.
Now, the vice president's best response of the night. When you talk about, again, these just bogus, disingenuous questions, you know, the kind of questions that Kamala gets asked versus what the vice president was asked. But first, Kamala got to answer the question. The president has refused to say if there will be a peaceful transition of power if he loses the election. How will the Biden administration handle that? And of course, you know, she went into some diatribe about, we support democracy. We're a republic, honey. But, you know, I realize you're running for the office of presidency / vice president. Forgive me if I think you ought to know what kind of government you're running to represent. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. That said, they then asked that question to Pence. Well, what happens if Donald Trump refuses to? How come we don't get asked, well, what happens if Joe Biden refuses to accept the results of the election? Which is exactly what Pence did. He turned the question back on them. He did it so brilliantly, I'm just going to let the vice president answer in its entirety.
Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election. Because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military, we revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then, Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
Boom. there it is. Hey, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Tell us what you thought of this video. After all, it's after midnight. Actually, it's after 1 a.m. that I'm making this, so I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Smack the bell and click the word all to get notification of my next rant.